I saw that picture. It showed the other person clear as day, other than his face. And it was quite obvious that it was done intentionally to blur his face out.
This surveillance footage comes from a venue which the Biggie Smalls case had taken place outside of, being in March of 1997. The classified FBI files released on the case claim that the CCTV footage contains Biggie's hitman on tape, with him being identified within one of the frames in the footage. The footage released has come with distortion, which makes it harder to identify the people within the footage. Some believe that LAPD may have been actively trying to cover up the crime, being due to allegations that officers may have been involved in orchestrating it. In this video, we are going to take a look into different pieces of media from the night of the Biggie incident, which FBI files claim contain Biggie's hitman on tape. This is the CCTV footage from 1997, which had been captured within the Peterson Automotive Museum on the night of March 8th, which had extended into the early hours of the 9th. The venue has multiple cameras throughout the building, as it holds one of the largest collections of vehicles in its exhibit, which showcases over 100 types, with the rarest being within a vault in the basement. The security system covers most of the property, being due to the expensive collections inside. The CCTV footage therefore is usually clear and of the quality of the time frame since opening in 1994. The footage which has been released from the night of the Biggie incident, however, is heavily distorted. The distortion makes it difficult to distinguish who appears in the footage. Some believe the distortion may have been added as the declassified FBI files released around the case had revealed that Biggie's killer is present in the footage. This would not be the first time that footage of the killer had been distorted. Footage from within the outdoor parking lot had captured a vehicle of interest on tape. This had been a white Land Cruiser which had been reported as attempting to intercept Biggie's convoy just prior to moments before the hit had taken place.
A white SUV pulls in front of the third SUV, momentarily cutting off security from Biggie's vehicle in front of them. The driver of the third SUV lunges his vehicle forward, cutting the white SUV out of the caravan. A lot of people would later theorize that the white SUV was involved in the shooting.
There are two different narratives regarding the vehicle, with one being the Russell Poole narrative and the other being the Greg Kading narrative. Russell Poole was one of the earlier detectives of the Biggie case, who had alleged that the LAPD had been behind the hit. His theory, which had been depicted in the movie City of Lies, had displayed the white Land Cruiser in the movie as being used to box in Biggie's vehicle, to which the hitman had pulled up alongside it in an Impala to carry out the hit. Former LAPD cop Greg Kading, who had later reinvestigated the case, being in response to a lawsuit against the LAPD based on Russell Poole's evidence, had put forward a different story of the vehicle in his documentary Murder Rap. The Land Cruiser in this narrative had been reported as failing to cut off Biggie's security detail and then making a U-turn and driving away. In Greg Kading's report of the Land Cruiser, there had been nobody of interest within the vehicle. The Murder Rap YouTube channel has several videos debunking the scenes in the City of Lies movie based on Russell Poole's theory, as they are found to be inaccurate when based on police reports. The vehicle of interest had been a white Toyota Land Cruiser, which under the Russell Poole theory was speculated as containing LAPD cop Kevin Gaines. Kevin Gaines had been listed in the FBI files as having an affair with Suge Knight's wife of the time, Sharifa Knight, which went back to 1993. Suge Knight had been the head of West Coast label Death Row Records, which had been involved in what was termed as the East Coast-West Coast beef, being with Biggie's label Bad Boy. Under Russell Poole's theory, a lawsuit had been filed against the LAPD by Biggie's estate, which had LAPD cop Rafael Perez as a defendant. Rafael Perez's former cellmates would give further information regarding the Land Cruiser. Kenneth Bogney had been sought after during the civil trial in the lawsuit against the LAPD, being due to information he had given to detectives about the Biggie case. Bogney had been a cellmate of the defendant, ex-LAPD cop Rafael Perez. Bogney had given information to the LAPD in the early 2000s, being prior to the lawsuit, where he had told them alleged information Perez was said to have given him about the Biggie case. Bogney had repeated his claims to journalist Don Sikorsky in a Dossier podcast by Criminal Minded Media. He claimed in a podcast that Perez was alleged to have told him Kevin Gaines, who is believed to have been in the white Land Cruiser, had failed to intercept Biggie's convoy. He had alleged to have been told by Perez that there had been a double hit out on both Biggie and Puffy, and how Gaines, who is alleged to have been in the Land Cruiser, was supposed to cut off the convoy, being so multiple hitmen could then take out both targets.
Gaines was supposed to cut both of them off, the officer Gaines. A lot of people don't know that the Canes was seriously involved in this. He was supposed to cut both vehicles off, and the other guy come around and shoot him.
Former FBI agent Phil Carson had also been on the podcast, where he had also claimed there had been multiple hitmen.
There were two cars set up, so depending on which way the caravan that had Puff and Biggie in it, whichever way they turned, there was going to be a car that was going to be there that had a shooter that was going to be able to take out, whether it be Puff or whether it be Biggie. So right there, it tells you there was more than one shooter.
More footage from inside the party had also been captured. Partygoers within the museum had been filming the party. Kadada Jones, being the daughter of Quincy Jones, had been hosting the party for Quincy's company Vibe magazine. The party was hosted as an after party for the Soul Train Music Awards. Biggie had presented an award to Toni Braxton at the event and had been booed while doing so.
What's up, Cali?
Kadada Jones had been the widow of Tupac Shakur, who had been killed in Las Vegas 6 months prior. The incident had been blamed on the Southside Compton Crips, with them being aligned with Puff Daddy and Biggie in the East Coast-West Coast War. Kadada Jones had invited Biggie and Puffy to the party, with this photo showing her speaking to them at their table. Footage taken within the party shows Puffy dancing and displays a majority of East Coast people in the music industry. The DJ at the party had been reported as numerously playing Biggie's hit single Hypnotize, which Biggie had filmed for the music video out there with Puffy. Several photos have been captured of Biggie and Puffy with their associates at their table within the party. Only Puffy had been captured on footage dancing at the party, as the videographer had approached Biggie at the table but had been told he didn't want to appear on camera. Southside Compton Crip shot caller Dwayne Davis had also been at the party. Davis had been charged for the murder of Tupac in 2023 after claiming he had assisted his nephew Orlando Anderson with carrying it out, being under the instruction of Puffy. Davis had been secretly recorded by Greg Kading in 2008, confessing to the Tupac crime, which had then been released in the 2015 documentary Murder Rap. In the audio, he claimed to have approached Biggie and Puffy at their table, but Puffy had told him to stay at a distance, telling him the feds were all over him.
He said the FBI is all over me, man. I don't want you guys catching my heat. Stay away from me.
Who said this?
Sean.
Oh, yeah. Combs said FBI is all over me?
Yes.
These photos were from FBI surveillance carried out on Biggie and Puffy at the time, which had been captured while they were entering the Soul Train Music Awards. Two girls had been reported as approaching Biggie and Puffy at their table within the party. FBI informant Mario Hammonds had carried out a deposition at the request of Biggie's family in order to give information forward he claimed to have had on the Biggie case. He claimed to have had information that two females had infiltrated Biggie's camp while in California and were alleged to have been assisting with the setup. These two females had been first reported as Death Row Records artist Jewel and Suge Knight's cousin Lachelle. The Art of Dialogue would go on to interview Jewel and Lachelle, where he had asked them about the setup accusations. They had admitted to approaching Biggie at the party, but had denied the allegations of setting him up. People have uploaded videos on YouTube analysing the party footage, with them claiming Biggie's killer can be spotted within the footage. The suspect had been described as a light-skinned African-American male in a suit and bow tie, which had resembled a uniform similar to the Fruits of Islam security service. The analysis video claims the suspect can be seen in the footage captured at the party, however it only shows the back view of a person's head in a suit. The video, which claims it is the suspect, further alleges the person can be seen communicating with Puffy's driver Kenneth Story. Kenneth Story was an Inglewood officer who had been one of 5 officers working without permits in order to provide security for Bad Boy in California. Death Row's former head of security Reggie Wright Jr., who had been a former Compton cop, had revealed he had been first offered the job to provide security for them, but he had turned it down, which had then led to the Inglewood cops to take the work. More people of interest had been captured in footage outside the venue. Fire marshals had shut down the party at 12:35 a.m. The reason had been that 2,000 guests had been overcrowding the venue, causing a hazard. CCTV footage within the museum had shown people leaving after it had been shut down. A police report revealed that somebody had discharged a firearm on the opposite side of the museum during this time, which had drawn the authorities away from the side Biggie and Puffy were on. People under the Russell Poole theory would believe this had been a diversion tactic to draw attention away from the scene. Greg Kading's documentary Murder Rap had claimed it had been a person who had dropped their firearm on the ground and had then discharged it into the air to make sure it was still working. Partygoers who were recording at the party had also captured the guests leaving. During this time, several people had been caught on tape which would become people of interest. A person of interest seen in the footage became known as the striped shirt guy. Puffy's bodyguard Gene Deal and the director of security Paul Offord had both made note of the striped shirt guy outside the venue. Police reports also mention a striped shirt guy as approaching Puffy and Gene before leaving. The blue and white striped shirt guy has been outlined by several different platforms, such as the YouTube channel Vlad TV doing a deep dive on the person seen in the video. The person had been mentioned in calls to emergency services which were documented after the shooting. A call from a couple who'd witnessed the shooting had described a man in his late 20s with a long-sleeve blue and white striped shirt, describing him as crouching behind a car in a parking garage holding a gun. They believed the shooter had been the same person they'd seen in the parking garage. Documentary filmmaker Mike Dorsey, when speaking of the suspect, said, quote, "To my knowledge, the striped shirt guy is the only person captured in this video to ever be identified by a witness as being one of the suspicious individuals in the garage that night, but they still don't know who he was," unquote. This parked dark Bentley seen in the footage also became a vehicle of interest. The vehicle had been documented in police reports coming from transcripts of documents in the questioning of Inglewood officer Kenneth Story. Kenneth Story had been documented as taking note of the Bentley in believing it had been associated to the striped shirt person who can be seen in footage standing in front of it. It was confirmed, however, that the striped shirt guy had no connection to the Bentley. In response to the Bentley becoming a vehicle of interest in the crime, the police had questioned rap entrepreneur Tony Draper. Tony Draper was the owner of Suave House Records, who had been identified in a Bentley outside the party on the night of the incident. Police, when they had questioned him, had come to find he had been the owner of a dark blue 1996 Bentley, which was believed to have been the same one which had been seen in the footage. Another vehicle of interest had been a dark-coloured SS Chevy Impala with chrome wheels. The car had been described as dark green or black in colour. Gene Deal had identified the car as being parked on the corner of the museum at the intersection. The car would be the vehicle which had carried out the hit on Biggie. The vehicle would be linked to two suspects depending on which detective's information is looked at. Russell Paul's evidence would allege the car had belonged to LAPD cop David Mack. The cop's home had been raided for a bank robbery in November of 1997, where a black SS Chevy Impala with chrome wheels had been found in his garage, which had matched the description of the suspect's vehicle. Greg Kading's evidence would claim the car had belonged to a Compton Mob Piru gang member called Wardell Poochie Fowles, who had it purchased for him by Suge Knight. A vehicle matching the description had been found at One Stop Auto, being Suge Knight's car garage in El Monte, California. More YouTube videos believe cops under the Russell Poole theory can be seen at the entrance of the museum in more footage taken from outside. A video from YouTuber Choke No Joke claims he believes LAPD cops David Mack and Kevin Gaines can be seen in footage from outside the entrance of the museum. David Mack was an LAPD Rampart cop who was also listed as a defendant in a lawsuit by Biggie's estate, which was based on the Russell Poole theory. David Mack, after being arrested for a bank robbery he'd committed in November of 1997, had told Detective Greg Grant that he was from the same Compton neighborhood as Suge Knight. Jailhouse informants would also tell detectives that while in prison, Mack had denounced his ties to the LAPD and had claimed to have been a Piru gang member.
David Mack renouncing the LAPD and coming out as a blood gang member.
He's in custody, Los Angeles County Jail, and we're getting reports back that he is attiring himself with red socks, red items that distinguish association with the blood gang. And we'd also received word from jailers that he had said he is a blood.
Choke No Joke believes footage may show David Mack with Kevin Gaines outside the museum. Kevin Gaines, who under the Russell Poole theory was alleged to have failed in intercepting the vehicles, had been killed by a fellow cop 9 days after the Biggie murder. People in analysing the footage believe who they say resembles David Mack may be standing outside the entrance of the venue holding a radio in their hands. Russell Poole had claimed in his theory that the cops were alleged to have used radios to orchestrate the hit. When David Mack's home had been raided for the bank robbery, numerous tactical items had been found which had included walkie-talkie radios. Kenneth Bogney, who had been Rafael Perez's cellmate, had told the Dossier podcast that he was alleged to have been told by Perez that both cell phones and radios had been used to communicate during the hit. He had alleged that Perez had told him that Rafael Perez had acted as a spotter during the hit, where he was alleged to have stalked Biggie and Puffy at the party and had been relaying their whereabouts to David Mack using a cell phone.
The night of the actual murder, David Mack told him to keep his eye on Notorious B.I.G. and Sean Puffy Combs. And when they got up or they made any type of move, he was to alert David Mack.
Perez's personal cell phone records have been looked into as part of the investigation, but they have come back as clean in relation to the crime. However, a burner cell phone could have been used instead. The person who people say resembles David Mack in the footage can be seen with a tattoo just under their shoulder. This is the location where the LAPD Rampart cops had shared the tattoo of the LAPD Rampart crash logo as seen in the example of Rafael Perez. It's unknown as to whether or not David Mack had the same tattoo. The Rampart Crash Division stood for the Community Resources Against Street Hoodlums. The cops had birthed what had been the Rampart corruption scandal, which went down as one of the worst police corruption scandals in US history. There has been speculation about how widespread the scandal actually was, as although over 70 police officers have been implicated in misconduct by Perez, it's believed Perez, who had exposed the scandal, may have lied to receive a reduced sentence for his own offences within the unit. The crash logo had been a skull with playing cards behind it, displaying a set known as the Dead Man's Hand. Perez described to investigators how playing cards had been handed out within the division, which had been to award officers for woundings and fatalities achieved on duty. Red cards had awarded non-fatal hits, while black cards had awarded killings.
We give plaques out when you get involved in shootings. If the guy dies, the card is black number 2. If he stayed alive, it's a red number 2.
Is it more prestigious to get one that's black than red?
I'm assuming so. I mean, yeah. I mean, you know, the black one signifies that the guy died. The red one means it was a hit, but not fatal.
Former FBI agent Phil Carson in the 2022 series Who Killed Biggie and Tupac claimed members of Biggie's entourage had identified David Mack as being at the entrance of the museum when they were entering.
David Mack was identified by witnesses who were part of Biggie's entourage, saw David Mack at the entrance when they went inside with Biggie.
Leila Steinberg had been Tupac's former manager, and she had also have trained David Mack in field before becoming a cop. As Leila was in the music industry as a manager, she had been attending the Vibe magazine party. In a 2021 documentary Last Man Standing by Nick Broomfield, she had identified David Mack and Rafael Perez as being at the party on the night of the Biggie incident.
I knew David very well because we worked together for years before he was an officer. He was one of the athletes on the team. I worked on David Mack in 82, 83, 84.
Did you see David Mack and Perez at the event at the Peterson Motel?
They were all there.
The declassified FBI files, which had been released in 2011 regarding the Biggie case, claim that footage may contain LAPD officers on tape as being involved in the unsolved murder of Biggie. This ties into footage of the incident taking place, which had been captured by multiple different sources. The footage of the striped shirt guy had also have gone on to have partially captured the incident taking place. When investigators had been looking into the information regarding the Bentley, which had been tied into Southern music executive Tony Draper, they had traveled to Houston, Texas to follow up on several leads. One of these were of a couple who had lived there who had captured the footage outside the museum. The footage would go on to be submitted to America's Most Wanted, but the moment which captured the actual incident taking place seems to have been edited, as cutting and distortion occurs at the specific moment.
I want to get out. Hold up.
Investigators had explained this in the VH1 series Famous Crime Scenes as solely being camera shake due to nervousness.
They was focused on Biggie's car when the shots were fired. Camera just went shaky, like, you know, you're nervous.
Upon analysis, it seems that the moment including the actual incident had been edited for whatever reason. It shows a clear picture of Puffy's car leaving, which was followed by a video cut and black video distortion with audio playing of screams and gunshots. There had been some time after Puffy's car had pulled off to which the incident had taken place, as there had been a brief hesitation while Biggie's car had stopped at the lights, so the footage does not show an accurate depiction, although it is real footage, but it seems to have been edited. Biggie's car can be seen with all its doors open as the occupants had fled amidst the incident. Numerous people can be seen running over to the car in the aftermath, While the audio is saying that Biggie and Puffy had been shot, Gene Deal during this time had taken Puffy's Suburban to attempt with chasing down the suspect. The Suburbans, which were retrieved for them by the Inglewood officers, each had government chips installed in them which cut off the fuel supply at high speeds, therefore not allowing a chase to take place. When Gene Deal had then arrived back at the scene, he claimed to have witnessed DJ Quick using a cell phone, where he claimed to have heard him say, "They just got Bad Boy, they said they was going to get them." Gene Deal claimed Biggie's final words had been "just do it" when people were telling him they were going to get him to the hospital.
"I'm gonna get you to the hospital, Big." Big said, "Just do it." The last thing I heard Big say was, "Just do it."
CCTV footage, which had not been released to the public but had been recovered by the police, had also included footage which came from cameras outside the museum which had faced the road which the incident had occurred on. The documents reveal that Biggie and Puffy had been being secretly recorded by an NYPD Major Case Squad detective and an agent from the Department of the Treasury. They had been investigating gun violations and connections into homicides. A snapshot from their surveillance had been included inside what was labeled as the Biggie Smalls murder book. This was the book used by detectives compiling evidence around the crime. The photo had showed the suspect dressed in a suit and bow tie approaching Puffy and Gene Deal outside the venue prior to them getting in their vehicles. Gene Deal identified this person as Amir Muhammad from a photo lineup in the 2002 Biggie and Tupac documentary. Amir Muhammad had gone to college with David Mack and had been the godparent to his kids. Gene Deal had been shown a surveillance photo by the authorities, but he claimed they had blurred out the face of the suspect.
There were 2 police officers from the LAPD came to interview me 2 weeks after Big's murder. This photo of this guy who had a suit on, white shirt, and a bow tie. It was actually the picture of when the guy approached me and Puff. Everything in the picture was picture perfectly clear, except the individual's face.
FBI agent Phil Carson had also have seen the photo within the book when reviewing evidence, to only then find out it had been removed when he had asked to see it again later.
I saw that picture. And that photo was part of the murder book. It showed Gene clear as day, showed Puffy's car clear as day, it showed the other person clear as day, other than his face. And it was quite obvious that it was done intentionally to blur his face out.
The 911 call made by the entourage on the way to the hospital had also been made public.
Wilson Boulevard.
Okay, hold on, I'll get
right
that.
on the corner, Wilson Fairfax. Fire department. Yeah, we need a Wilson Fairfax.
It's unsure as to which 911 call had been released, as one of the callers claimed they had been in the car behind Biggie's, while later on in the audio a person can be heard communicating with Biggie.
We're in the car right now. We're going to the hospital right now. I don't know. I'm not from here. I'm from New York.
Listen, is the party that was shot in your car?
No. Big, you hear me, baby?
In one of the calls, somebody can be heard arguing with Inglewood officer Kenneth Story, telling him he was taking too long to get to the hospital.
Yo, you gotta go back. You gotta turn around, Jimmy. You're going the wrong way. Jimmy, what you doing?
They can also be heard arguing over the description of the suspect's vehicle, being while they were trying to report it to the authorities.
Give me the picture of the vehicle that shot at you.
I don't know. What kind of car was it? It's Impala, man.
It was Impala?
Yeah. Blue, aqua blue.
Some believe Biggie's last words saying help can be heard on a tape towards the end of the audio. Footage had been captured at the scene of the crime, which had showed detectives collecting evidence in the area. More footage had been captured of the crime scene tape around Biggie's car outside the hospital, being while it had been being investigated by officers. The investigation had been taken on by the LAPD Wilshire Division. The crime scene had been contaminated with both police and bystanders touching evidence and moving items. The police had recovered bullet casings, shell fragments, and had also collected witness statements. FBI agent Phil Carson had reported in the 2022 series Who Killed Biggie and Tupac that an LAPD log had revealed that Rafael Perez had been down on paper as a responding officer on the scene of the crime. This would mean if Perez had been at the party as identified by Leila Steinberg, he would have kept his uniform close by to change into, or may have been in uniform at the party. Phil Carson claimed the log had further revealed that Perez had been handling shell casings.
Rafael Perez was seen picking up shell casings and actually is on a log as an LAPD officer on site.
The shell casings were found to belong to 9mm Gecko armor-piercing bullets, being fired from a blue steel pistol. The bullets were listed in the FBI files as a rare type, with it being found that they were usually sold to police departments through military surplus sales. Greg Kading's murder rap had disproved the rare claims, revealing numerous stores in California sold the ammo type. When David Mack's home had been raided for the bank robbery, radar-penetrating technology had been used throughout his home, where the same Gecko ammunition type had been found buried under his floorboards. Numerous blue steel pistols had also been found, which were the same type used in the crime. Ballistics tests had been carried out on the weapons in relation to the Biggie case, but they hadn't brought back a positive match on any of the firearms found at the property. Further footage had been captured outside the hospital, being while Biggie had been being operated on inside. When Biggie had been taken to the hospital, Gene Dill and several others had to remove him from the car to place him on a gurney. Gene had revealed during the process of removing Biggie from the car, he could see that Biggie's pants were saturated, and he could also smell defecation, being an indicator that Biggie had been dead on arrival. Although Biggie had been shot 4 times, there had been no blood visible, as it had been found out that due to Biggie's obesity, his stored fat had sealed the wound shut, therefore no external bleeding had been present. Biggie had been rushed into the emergency room where an emergency thoracotomy had been carried out by the doctors. This is an emergency medical procedure where the chest area is opened in order to perform open chest resuscitation. Biggie was unsuccessfully resuscitated, with him being pronounced dead at 1:15 a.m. The entourage sat in the waiting room passing a phone around in order to build up the courage to phone Biggie's mother and give her the bad news. It had been at the hospital where the suspect sketch was created by the authorities. Gene claimed Biggie's artist Lil C's, who had been in the seat behind Biggie and had saw the hitman, kept repeating in the hospital that a Muslim had shot Big. Gene had then described the person who he had seen approach him and Puffy just prior, who Gene had identified as Amir Muhammad. Further media of Biggie within the morgue had been captured, which is publicly available, but we cannot show it on his platform. It had been released, however, in the 2001 series called Frontline, in an episode titled LAPD Blues. Biggie had been displayed in a sequence of snapshots within the morgue, showing medical apparatus still attached to him from the revival attempts at the hospital. Biggie's autopsy report lists LAPD Wilshire Division detectives Valderrama and Chavez as being present at the morgue during the autopsy. The report shows the autopsy started 7 hours after he had been pronounced dead, being after he was transported to the LA County Coroner's Office from Cedars-Sinai Hospital. Kenneth Bogney would give forward more information about the morgue to the LAPD in November of 2000. Bogney had told LAPD Detective Cliff Armas to check the LA County Coroner's Office log for Rafael Perez's name. Bogney had alleged Perez had told him that Perez had gone to the morgue to visit Biggie's body after the hit. Cliff Armas confirmed he had found Perez as logged into the morgue when Biggie had been checked in there.
I told him, I said, why don't you check out and see if he signed his name on the log about going to see the BIG's body whenever it was in the morgue. He came back maybe about a week later and said, hey man, you were correct. He did sign in on the morgue. I can't believe he told you that.
Why did he say he went to the morgue? Why would he go to the morgue?
He just wants to see the body.
Bogney had then been given the option to speak to the homicide division, as Cliff Armas had reported the findings back to the division, as it had also tied into Detective Russell Pool's evidence. Armas had then returned to the morgue after revealing the information to the division, to then only find that the page had been removed from the log. This is similar to the photo of the suspect in the murder evidence book also being removed. The Chaos Merchants book by former LAPD Detective Russell Pool and co-author Michael Douglas Carlin furthers the claims about the morgue, with it reading, quote, Rafael Perez agreed to visit the morgue to see the body and confirm the kill. He used his normal protocol to get through security measures and was able to confirm that Biggie Smalls was indeed dead, unquote. The confirmation of the hit would only bring further problems for the cops, according to Kenneth Bogney. Bogney would tell the Dossier podcast that as only one target had been confirmed due to a failed botched hit caused by the failed interception by Kevin Gaines, the cops had not been paid what they had been promised. Bogney alleged Perez had told him the cops had been paid $250,000 up front and were then promised an additional $750,000 afterwards, being under $1 million contract. The contract, however, according to Bogney, was for both Biggie and Puffy, and therefore in only being able to provide success in one target, Bogney had alleged had been the reason that David Mack had carried out a bank robbery months after. Mack had used his girlfriend who worked at the bank to provide assistance, where he had stolen $722,000 which still remains unaccounted for. Bogni alleged the money had been used to pay Amir Muhammad, who he had claimed had been the hitman. In this video, we took a look into the different types of media connected to the unsolved case of Biggie. FBI files claim this CCTV footage contains the suspect on tape. Under the Russell Poole theory, the hitman had been Amir Muhammad. Under the Greg Kading theory, it had been Ward Al-Pucci files. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, smash the thumbs up button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and press that bell button so you can get all the future notifications for when I upload. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.